Okay, so today I just want to share the first part of Job and give you a little bit of a glimmer into the role of the adversary in God's divine plan. Now, the book of Job gives you a real clear picture of what the adversary is capable of in the sense of what God gives him. He gives him a short leash, and he did this in the experience of Job, that Satan would afflict and destroy and take away from Job. He couldn't kill him because God stopped him to a certain point. So that takes away free will right there of any of God's creatures. They do not have independence from outside controlling forces, and our environment attests to this. I mean, I don't know why people still hold on to free will. You got to realize God's sovereign in His creation, and He operates it perfectly and scripts it perfectly, and the adversary is no different. And when he afflicted Job and took his family from him and destroyed everything that he had, Job acknowledged God's hand in it. And that's amazing right there. That's true worship and adoration of a God and Father who operates the whole. Okay, so let's just share the first part of Job here. There was a day when the sons of Elohim would come to station themselves before Yahweh, and the adversary came also in their midst. Yahweh said to the adversary, "From where are you coming?" Then the adversary answered Yahweh and said, "From going to and fro in the earth, and from walking about in it." Yahweh said to the adversary, "Have you set your heart on my servant Job? For there is no one like him on earth, a man flawless and upright, fearing Elohim and keeping away from evil." Then the adversary answered Yahweh and said, "Does Job fear Elohim gratuitously? Have you yourself not hedged him about, and about his house, and about all that is his all around? The work of his hands you have blessed, and his cattle breach forth throughout the countryside. Nevertheless, now put forth your hand and touch all that he has. He shall assuredly scorn you to your face." Hence Yahweh said to the adversary, "Behold, all that he has is in your hand, but you must not put forth your hand upon himself," meaning do not kill Job. Then the adversary went forth from Yahweh's presence. Job chapter 1, 6 through 12. Okay, so the council of heaven. The outstanding feature of the prologue to Job is the two sessions, which were celestial sessions, of the council of heaven. The Lord is surrounded by his ministers who do his pleasure. Psalm 103:21. The sons of God are powers attending upon God as a council of officers upon a king. They are functionaries through whom God's government is carried on, and they come to report. Among them came the adversary. So as you can see, God has a council, and it's a beautiful council. It reports to God everything that occurs on the earth and everything that occurs as far as being scripted by God in perfect succession. So you're looking at an adversary, which is not a person or an individual. So I want to explain that a little bit. The word adversary is a title of an office, not a name of an individual. The officer comes with the other sons of God, and there is nothing to support the idea that it crept in. His office is that of opposition and accusation. The word implies that he is adverse to the saints in a way similar to the responsibility of an officer or supervisor toward those under his charge. In the present case of the adversary, described his office as the inspection of earth. The words "from going to and fro in the earth and from walking about in it" are in themselves descriptive of such an office. That they do not imply restlessness is evident from the fact that the same phrase is used of the eyes of Yahweh. So the eyes of Yahweh is his counsel. 2 Chronicles 16:9, and are similar to the words in Zechariah 1:10 and 11, which refer to the spirits which carry out the divine mandates. So intermediaries. God uses intermediaries in this way to display his power. The adversary's action against Job, though malign in its effects, is not prompted by malignity. To be suspicious is the function of an inspector, and he only does his duty in suggesting a possible flaw in the apparent piety of Job. The position of the adversary is much like that of the devil's advocate in the usage of the Roman Church, who was the function of making opposition to the canonization of a saint, lest any flaw should be overlooked. When the council resembles, and the adversary proposes a yet more implacable trial, Job chapter 2, 1 through 5, he acts in the spirit of a prosecutor who concentrates his energies to make a trial intensely searching, lest it should prove 1 degree short of being exhaustive. Neither do the Lord's words, "You would incite me against him," in Job chapter 2, verse 3, imply malevolence. They are just the remark one would expect from a superior to a subordinate officer when investigation has shown the suspicions of the latter to be unfounded. Disasters. Armed with divine decree, the adversary went forth on his errand, and by concerted action of varied forces at his disposal brings upon Job a series of disasters, succeeding one another with bewildering rapidity. Now the day came when his sons and his daughters were eating and drinking wine in the house of their brother, the firstborn. And a messenger came to Job and said, "The oxen were plowing, and the jennies were grazing at their sides, when the Sabeans swooped down and took them. Then they smote the lads with the edge of their sword. Yet I escaped, but I myself alone, to tell it to you." This one was still speaking when another came and said, "The fire of Elohim. It fell from the heavens. It consumed the small cattle and the lads, and it devoured them. Yet I escaped, but I myself alone, to tell it to you." This one was still speaking when another came and said, "The Chaldeans, they formed 3 bands, and they merged on the camels and took them. Then they smote the lads with the edge of the sword. Yet I escaped, but I myself alone, to tell it to you." This one was still speaking when another came and said, "Your sons and your daughters were eating and drinking wine in the house of their brother, the firstborn, when behold, a great wind came across the wilderness, and it assaulted the 4 corners of the house. It fell upon the young people, and they died. Yet I escaped, but I myself alone, to tell it to you." Job chapter 1, 13 through 19. So as you can see, the adversary afflicted Job in succession. He did it swiftly. God's judgments are, when they're in the earth, it'll be swift. The last 3.5 years of the tribulation, that's 3.5 years. And it's swift. All these judgments, everything that comes upon the earth, the messengers that bring these judgments, it's powerful. And it is going to do what it needs to do. When God enacts his judgments, they are swift. This is why I can say I don't believe it's going to be a long, drawn-out session when it comes to the great white throne. It's going to be pretty swift. Even our own standing at the dais of Christ will be swift. That which is useless will burn up, and it'll burn up fast, so that we can receive the requital of that which remains, the gold, silver, and precious stones. This is what's going to be requited. at the days of Christ for the members of the body of Christ. And it will be swift. It's not a long drawn-out session. I don't believe God's judgments at all are that way. You can see it. It's in succession. It takes place swiftly. Okay, let's hear Job's response. Then Job arose, tore his robes, and sheared his head. He fell to the earth and worshipped. And he said, Naked I came forth from the belly of my mother, and naked I shall return there. Yahweh, he gives, and Yahweh, he takes away. Blessed be the name of Yahweh. In all this Job never sinned, nor ascribed anything improper to Elohim. Job chapter 1, 20 and 22. The day came when the adversary executed the decree concerning Job's estate. 4 rapid blows fell in succession, the news of each being quickly brought to Job. First, through the agency of captors, the oxen and jennies were taken, and the lad smitten with the sword. Immediately upon this, the fire of Elohim consumed among the small cattle and the lads assigned to their care. Overtaking this situation were raiding Chaldeans, who took the camels, smiting the lads, and charged to them. Suddenly a great wind swept across the wilderness, striking the house in which Job's children were feasting. Thus all that Job had been given was gone. Job received the reports of these evils almost simultaneously. His reaction is one of great sorrow, yet accompanied by worship. Blessing the name of Elohim, and blessing of Yahweh, and acknowledging and accepting the glory of his authority, both to give and to take away as is good in his eyes. Job was the most moral and spiritual in that day in the earth. Yet even in this outstanding response to the disasters brought upon him, we must conclude that there were deficiencies. At heart, he had not yet a full acquaintance with God and his ways. And this is why God gave him the experience, to make him acquainted with the ways of God. In that way, where he goes through the experience of evil, that the sequel comes, and he really sees the contrast of value of God's operations. And this is us going through our experiences to see that backdrop of evil on purpose, to know that God is bringing the good through it. And this is why God scripts it out the way he does. This lack will become more evident as the account proceeds and the days assigned to him unfold. Job 42:17. Okay, so there's a little lesson for today, and we'll talk to you later. Grace and peace.